before we get to our first guest, get your popcorn out because Bill and Hillary Clinton are going to testify at US Congress about their dealings with Jeffrey Epstein. Now, I personally can't wait to hear how the former president explains this topless photo of himself in a dimly lit hot tub. And this picture was, of course, released as part of the Epstein files. But gee, this is a stunning capitulation by the Clintons, who have defied committee-issued subpoenas and even the risk of imprisonment by the Trump Justice Department. They have avoided this like the plague, but both changed their minds ahead of a planned vote in the House of Representatives to hold the two Democrats in contempt, which could have led to criminal charges. But look, I've got to say, you've got to wonder. I mean, the Democrats, they could have released these files years ago, right? But none of them actually did. And now they're going, they're going after Donald Trump. They're claiming that he was in on it. Well, again, the Dems had their hands on these files. So I would ask, what are they hiding?
Let's talk about the newly released Epstein files. We know that former US President Bill Clinton and his wife, former US Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, have now caved, agreeing to testify in the congressional investigation into Jeffrey Epstein. This comes days before the Republican-led US House of Reps was expected to vote to hold both Clintons in criminal contempt over their resistance of legal summonses. Now, several pictures of Bill Clinton appeared in the files released by the DOJ. Of course, we have to say Bill Clinton has denied any wrongdoing. Joe, can I get your thoughts around this? I think there needs to be more than a congressional investigation into Jeffrey Epstein, but what do you make of this development?
I mean, it's very interesting. Bill Clinton is a sleazebag. He's been sleazy, when he was governor of Arkansas and then president, and everybody heard rumors, and then he got caught and all the rest of it. I mean, he brought the office of the presidency into disrepute. I don't think there's any more mileage in embarrassing this guy. I mean, when he's being questioned under a subpoena and all the rest of it, he's got to tell the truth or his version of the truth. I mean, he's trying to avoid the contempt charge. And Hillary, I think her time has come and gone. That is, there's no more political mileage in getting embarrassing her. She's already had kind of an embarrassing end to her career anyway. But what bothers me about the Epstein thing is what looks like normalcy. It's got all these captains of industry and politicians and royalty hanging out with Epstein, and some lawyers who should have known better, as a matter of fact. And he's starting to give the impression that what he's doing is all right. Well, it's not all right. I mean, I was very suspicious when he got off the hook the first time, and the prosecutor who let him off the hook didn't really have a very good explanation, as a matter of fact. And so, there's a lot of things about Epstein that we're going to find out. Now, we got 3.5 million pieces of information. There are 2.5 million pieces to go. I'm amazed there's so many millions of pieces on this guy. And I don't think no one's going to find a smoking gun on President Trump. There's smoke, all right, but he knew the guy and he knew everybody who knew everybody else. But the Epstein thing is going to be investigated further because the American people, and these are good Republicans and good Democrats, who want to take this thing a little bit further. But I'll tell you, one thing that bothers me about this is that in his whole career, we have not heard a single story, email or anecdote about anybody who fronted Epstein's behavior and just punched him in the face. I grew up with a nice family on the south side of Chicago. I had a very polite Catholic father, a very polite Jewish mother, and that kind of behavior would never have been tolerated. Somebody famously would have punched someone in the face. The idea that no captain of industry stood up to this guy strikes me as devastating. The young lady who committed suicide in Australia, who wrote her memoirs, she said at the end she got very discouraged about anything coming out of the Epstein files because she said she realized after a while that everybody at the upper levels of American society regarded this behavior as normal. Well, there's nothing normal about what they were doing. And God knows what else he was doing beside corrupting these people. He's probably setting up people for blackmail, and he was wheeling and dealing. I mean, there's a lot of things there that people will be looking at hundreds of years after this conversation about how American society worked. But look, the whole thing stinks. And I think a lot more people are going to be caught up in this. And yes, there should be a full investigation. The American people will want to take this one to the end.
Yeah, we deserve the truth 100%. And there are still so many questions. Josh, can I get your assessment?
Yeah, look, I think everyone knows at this point that Bill Clinton was a heck of a lot closer to Jeffrey Epstein than Donald Trump was. For what's worth, Donald Trump actually kicked Jeffrey Epstein out of Mar-a-Lago. Jeffrey Epstein was actually a member of Mar-a-Lago. And as soon as Donald Trump actually learned of these deeply sordid deeds that Jeffrey Epstein was affiliated with, Trump actually kicked him out and took away his membership card. And frankly, Gabrielle, one of my working theories is that this is actually the reason that Jeffrey Epstein became something of an anti-Trump provocateur in his later years. We actually saw these text exchanges. He was texting the non-voting representative from the U.S. Virgin Islands during that Michael Cohen hearing in Congress back in 2019 there. He really had this deep-rooted anti-Trump animus, all these texts and emails with Michael Wolff as well. My working theory of the case is that Jeffrey Epstein was the kind of guy who basically knew everyone, that he was palling around, hobnobbing with the rich and famous. Donald Trump was one of the only people who, to Joe's point, kind of had anything in him to kind of stand up and say, no, I'm actually not going to be associated with this there. So that's my theory as to why Epstein was so anti-Trump, especially in his later years. Now, is anything going to happen from Bill and Hillary Clinton testifying? Probably not. They're probably going to take the Fifth Amendment over and over and over again there. I could actually potentially see a way in which Democrats tried to somehow make this actually redound to their interest. Maybe they try to ask questions, Bill Clinton, tell us about the GDP growth when you were president, try to kind of play up with the notion that the Democrats are very good at handling the economy there, this whole information operation about how Trump is overseeing an affordability crisis, which he's not. It's basically a fabrication of the media. Anyway, I'm kind of just spitballing here, but I could kind of see a way when Democrats could try to get some of their own applause lines for the cameras. Gabrielle, personally, if I'm just being very candid and blunt here, I am somewhat frustrated with the Epstein story at this point. Not that I don't care about the truth. I care a lot about the truth. Rather, just putting on my legal cap as a lawyer who clerked on a federal appeals judge and I've seen God knows many criminal indictments and whatnot in my life here. I know that the statute of limitations for the overwhelming majority of the underlying crimes that were committed here have all but assuredly passed. So while we all want justice, just putting on my legal cap here, I hate to be the bearer of bad news. I do not see some sort of meaningful legal justice happening. I hope I'm wrong. I hope that there's some statute that has not expired and that there's some kind of bigwig who can be carted off to prison, or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 100 or a million, because this is really, really, really dark and nasty stuff there. But if I'm just being sober and I try to call it like I see it there, I don't necessarily see this ending with a huge amount of legal justice. Rather, I think the best that we can probably realistically hope for is political justice for those who have been involved in these sordid deeds.